So let's get into our first topic now. The question we're asking is this: is Donald Trump a tyrant? Now, at a rally yesterday, Bruce Springsteen, or sometimes known as the Boss, he came out to support Democratic candidate Kamala Harris. But he also warned that her Republican opponent, Donald Trump, is running to be an American tyrant. Let's hear a little bit more of what he had to say.
There is only one candidate in this election who holds those principles dear: Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. She's running to be the 47th president of the United States. Donald Trump is running to be an American tyrant. He does not understand this country, its history, or what it means to be deeply American. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz for president and vice president. Get out there and vote!
Now, Trump's opponents have been making strong claims against him in recent days. On Wednesday, Kamala Harris said that Trump wants unchecked power and quoted his former chief of staff, John Kelly. Have a look.
It is clear from John Kelly's words that Donald Trump is someone who, I quote, certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, who in fact vowed to be a dictator on day one and vowed to use the military as his personal militia to carry out his personal and political vendettas. Donald Trump is increasingly unhinged and unstable.
However, with less than 2 weeks to go until Election Day, polls show that the race is still very, very, very tight. So, what do you make of him? Do you think he's a tyrant? Or do you think all of this is just an attempt to pull him down? Well, let's know your thoughts. 0207 862 2222. What do you think? Do you think Donald Trump's a tyrant?
Well, it depends on the definition of tyrant.
OK, well, we've got one here for you. Cruel and oppressive ruler.
Right. Now, I've worked for plenty of Fleet Street editors who were tyrants, OK?
Right.
Who had me there 16 hours a day, beating me up, you know, physically sometimes and certainly mentally. And that's because there was a sheer desire to get the job done, get the paper out and do it like that. So, you know, it's a definition of tyrant. Are you saying that I think Donald Trump will be absolutely single-minded in doing what is best for America, in his view, then I support that, and I don't think that's tyranny. I think that's sheer political will. It makes me laugh sometimes when you see Bruce Springsteen and these sort of... I think he's about to sell his back catalogue for about $400 million or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it always amuses me when these, you know, almost billionaire rock stars get up on the stage, man of the people, you know, Trump's a tyrant, Kamala Harris. I just think they're playing to the crowd.
A bit like politicians, sir.
A bit like politicians.
A bit like politicians.
But also, you know, this sort of guilt of being so wealthy and so successful, I better try and accord with what I believe
like
to be...
talking about being working class,
the normal
right?
people.
Politicians.
So, to finish off the original answer, I tell you where the tyrants in the world are. The tyrants in the world this week have been at a meeting, haven't they? Meeting together. It's called BRICS, OK? Mm-hmm. Brazil... who is it?
China.
Brazil, Russia, China, South Africa.
Yep.
They're called BRICS. Now, you've got the leader of China there and you've got Putin there. They are tyrants. They are tyrants who want to bring down the Western world. And in my view, Donald Trump is the strongest man to stand up to them and say, no, the Western world and freedom will survive.
OK, not a tyrant. Imarn, how do you see it? Would you describe him as a tyrant?
Yes, in regards to marginalised communities, yes. So when I think about him being a tyrant, as you said, a cruel and oppressive leader, I don't think he's cruel and oppressive to those that are aligned with his political ideologies. I think he's actually quite excellent. So it doesn't surprise me that people are aligned with his agenda and what he stands for. I do believe he is a tyrant in regards to marginalised communities. We already know in terms of women and the whole kind of abortion topic. That's a bit contentious. I won't go.
Young black people are swinging towards him, aren't they?
No, they've swung back to Kamala, Kamala, rather. Let me get her name correct. They've swung back, sir.
I've read a few reports saying young black people are now looking at Trump and thinking, this is
that was
my
before
future.
they swung back. Pennsylvania, I think, is the most, or one of the swing states, and I'm pretty sure the black men and black women, basically more of the tell is there's been a campaign. The Democratic Party have realised that they have lost a lot of the black votes.
Exactly.
Right.
So
and
it's in the
right,
balance. It's in the balance.
That has changed. That's the point.
Okay, but
It's changed
what do we
recently.
make of someone who, for example, he said a lot of things in recent interviews. He's not particularly open to any sort of criticism, but look, a lot of politicians don't like criticism, so that's fine. But in a recent interview, he's been saying, for example, that CBS and ABC, two of the big national networks, should lose their license, their broadcasting license, because in the example of ABC, they fact-checked one of the debates. I mean, someone who's wanting to shut down, and it is a little bit ironic because him and Musk are all the big proponents of free speech, but to want to shut down free speech because it's criticising you, is that not tyrant-like?
And hypocrisy? And hypocrisy?
To my mind, it's political speak. I mean, we all know
so
what
Trump doesn't mean it?
Well, we all know what Trump's been about. My way or no way. He's said that forever, including the outcome of the last election, which he lost, of course, which plunged America into crisis.
And he's still holding on to for dear life, saying he won.
I agree, but seriously, you can't take that seriously. The thing is, America is such a strong...
He's supposed to be the president, Mike. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. You just said you can't take it seriously. He's supposed to be the new president. We have to take it seriously. This man is a liar.
America is such a strong democracy, and it's got stronger since the debacle that ended his presidency, that they've reinforced the democratic rules, that he can't be a threat to democracy. So a tyrant wouldn't work in America.
All right, let's find what people are saying at home. Elva has got in touch from Cornwall. Elva, good afternoon, Elva. What do you think? Would you call Trump a tyrant?
I don't think I'd bandy words like that around, but
okay.
I wouldn't vote for anybody who thinks that they should be above the law. No president should be above the law. It is totally ridiculous.
Yep.
It's very, very wrong. That's all I've got to say. I'm not a speaker.
I second that, Elva, just so you know. I'm here. I'm the cheerleader in the background. I agree with you.
What a surprise.
Elva, people have been banding the words tyrant around. People have been banding the word fascist around. We were talking earlier about John Kelly, who, I should remind people, is a former US Marine Corps general. He was Donald Trump's White House chief of staff in Donald Trump's first presidency. And he has called him a fascist. He said that there were numerous occasions where Donald Trump would say things like he wished he had people around him, that the generals that Hitler had around him, sort of following him blindly. I mean, we can say, OK, he says that. Does he mean it? And what Mike says, quite a lot of it is bluster. But should those kind of conversations, Elva, be worrying to us? As Mike said, America, very influential country around the globe, one of the strongest democracies. Is it safe in Donald Trump's hands, do you think?
No. I think he incited insurrection in his own country.
January 6th, yeah. OK. I mean, that's...
So, at the White House...
He denies that, of course.
Well, it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious he did. You know, you can't change that.
The problem is, Elva, we've only got two choices in America. It's Trump or Kamala Harris, OK? And I would say United States would be very unsafe in the hands of Kamala Harris. This man, Trump, has already been president. I was amazed when Bruce Springsteen said he doesn't know what America's about. He's run the country for 4 years. Kamala Harris, in my mind, has exhibited some, pretty hopeless political beliefs, and I don't see her as a leader of the Western world. OK. Elva, thank you. I mean, Imarn, that is a point. He's not an unknown quantity, Trump. He has been president. The country did survive. Some argue that the country... And got stronger.
Well, but that's subjective, sir, if you don't mind me saying so. Sorry to interrupt, Alexis. I do genuinely believe that's subjective, and that's why I led earlier by saying that when I think about him being a tyrant, he's not a tyrant towards his people that are aligned with his political agendas. He is a tyrant towards those that are not, those that are marginalised communities. So I would actually argue he hasn't improved things in terms of the rhetoric from the racial prejudice that went from covert to overt in America. This is a man who also, let me just be clear, I'll be personal in this respect, but I'll say that I was utterly offended when I found out that in 1973 Trump was sued by the Justice Department for the fact that he discriminated against black people in his Trump village. So this is a man who has evidence in his past of racism, and it has trickled out in terms of his rhetoric as a president, and it has led to a division, an even more more division in terms
Okay.
of race and America. That's my
let me
personal
play
stance.
Let me play you this clip, because you just mentioned there that he can be endangered to his own people.
Yeah.
So this has been coming up a lot when Trump has been giving interviews, where he talks about an enemy from within. Let's just have a listen to what he has to say.
I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of election day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. It should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military.
That's it.
What do you make of that clip, Mike? Because essentially what he's saying, look, the people who he classes as extreme and leftists, or the people he disagreed with, at the final there, he just said maybe they need to be dealt with by the military.
Yeah. Well, look, he's very straight talking. He always has been. Now, if you look at some of the riots that have happened in America over recent years, sometimes for some very good reasons, right? Because people have been killed by police officers and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
There have been large-scale riots on the streets. Black Lives Matter, have had situations that have got out of control and that sort of thing. It is a proven fact of life in America.
And just like Capitol insurrection.
When you have civil disorder, you call in the National Guard. That's what they're there for. And they are a military organisation there to uphold law and order. I don't think that was dangerous at all.
All right, let's... I'll come to you in just a second. I just want to hear what Doris has to say in Hampshire. Doris, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. What is your opinion? Do you think Trump can be described as a tyrant?
No way.
Okay.
No way.
How would you describe
When he
him?
was in power before, right, I have a sister that lives in America,
Yeah.
and she said when Trump got in before, they had help.
Mm-hmm.
He helped people get back into work, and he helped people get off the streets.
Yeah.
So he definitely is not a tyrant, and he is all for his people in America, and they're run over by, like we are here, immigrants.
So may I interject, Doris? I appreciate your sentiment. I truly do. I understand that. And I'm just hoping that you can understand what I'm saying in terms of he is a tyrant in regards to marginalised communities, because just like you referred to, immigrants, right? So there seems to be very little protection for immigrants, for Mexicans, for black people, but there's plenty of protection for anyone that is aligned with his political ideology. So this is my stance, as in if you're going to talk about America and you're actually going to encompass everyone within America, then one shouldn't be an extremist and simply talk about left-wing nut jobs or whatever the term that it was that he used. I think we can be honest with ourselves and say there are definite nut jobs. For lack of a better word, definite nut jobs on the left, but there's definite nut jobs on the right. And he did not mention that. In fact, he just hones in on the left and the marginalised communities and women, and making sure that women can't have abortions, right? So it's just marginalised communities that are having to feel the full brunt of his tyranny. That's my point, Doris, and I'm hoping that you can understand that just to an extent.
Yeah. Doris, thank you for the points that you made. Let's move on to Stephen in Essex. Stephen, welcome to the show. What are your thoughts? Can Trump be described as a tyrant?
Well, I think so, yeah. I mean, when you've got the likes of Robert De Niro and Bruce Springsteen, and he's threatened, when he comes into power, that he's going to go after these people that have voted against him and said things against him. So that's my worry, if he gets into power, he's going to go after these people.
But he's been in power before, though, Stephen, and he didn't really go after... In fact, if anything, most people who are quite well off in America did quite well under Donald Trump. So Bruce Springsteen's probably going to do quite well if Trump gets in again.
What about Clinton, and what about Clinton saying lock her up?
Well, he didn't lock her up, though, did he? In fact, he completely ignored Hillary Clinton when he won power.
Yeah. But also, he won't accept losing either. I mean, if you can't, let's face it.
That's a very valid point. I mean, he still has not accepted that he lost the 2020 election. Yeah. Should he lose in 2 weeks' time, is he going to accept it? I'm not quite sure.
Can I just put this point to you? If there is a bit of the tyrant in Donald Trump, isn't that what the world needs, considering we've seen the leader of China and Russia getting together this week at a conference designed to challenge Western supremacy. You need a very strong US president with a bit of the tyrant in him to face up to the tyrants that we know want to destroy the Western world.
No, but Al Gore, he absolutely, it was a tight election many years ago, and he stepped down even though it was tight. You can't have someone like that. He is a dictator when you won't accept losing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a little bit curious, Mike. I don't know what you think of this.
Yeah, may I
just if you can be a bit of a tyrant.
Well,
I'm not quite sure what that entails.
But that's actually my point, if you don't mind me saying.
Are you talking about being a strong leader?
I'm talking about when you're...
The strength versus strength.
What I'm saying is, when you're facing tyranny, and there is tyranny in China,
so there's
tyranny in North Korea, there's tyranny in Russia, then the person who's challenging that tyranny has got to seem to those tyrants to have a bit of the tyrant.
But are you comfortable with that person wanting to get the National Guard and the army, as you said, for the people that disagree with him, or to saying that state broadcasters should be shut down because he doesn't like the fact that they're fact-checking?
That is Trump speak. We all know about that. That is Trump speak, and people take it with a pinch of salt.
So you keep simplifying it by saying it's nothing, take it with a pinch of salt. I actually say...
I understand
I appreciate both of your points. I actually think you made a very valid point. You need strength to match strength, right? In terms of if you've got strength going on in the world, you don't want a weak leader to represent your community and your cohort.
I don't believe Ukraine would have happened if Trump was in power.
Okay,
I don't believe it would have
happened.
I
appreciate that. So how I rationalise that in my brain is someone who is strong, competing or opposing another individual across the world that is also strong. I think you need strength with strength. However, what I will say is there's also collateral damage. And I think that's where we forget. That collateral damage is the racist rhetoric that causes further divisions amongst the, 300 and odd million people in America. It causes even more division in terms of prejudice, in terms of division in terms of marginalised communities, pitting different cohorts against one another. Mexicans, black jobs, right? So you're pitting Mexicans against black. So there is collateral damage with that. So yes, I agree to an extent that you should match strength with strength and be a strong leader to oppose other strong leaders around the world. But there is collateral damage and your country will suffer as a result. That is my point.
Let's squeeze in Alistair, who's also got in touch from Buckinghamshire. Alistair, welcome to the show. What's your view? Can we describe Trump as a tyrant? Is that fair?
Well, I think that I don't think we can describe Trump as a tyrant simply because the system that he goes into as president doesn't allow him to do so. And I'm glad that Mike, in particular, pointed this out. The American system was designed so that somebody wouldn't rule in a tyrannical way.
Absolutely right.
And that's the thing is that he has checks and balances. He cannot do anything with congressional support, even with the presidential orders, the little bits of paper that he signed in his previous administration. They got challenged in the courts, particularly the Muslim ban, for example, which caused all those problems at the airports. Those things get challenged in the courts. The system he goes into means that he can't just rule like a king. So I don't think that he's a tyrant.
It actually isn't.
Respect.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I do apologise, Alice. I genuinely am hearing what you're saying, and I just wanted to pose a question to you, which is, if this is the same man who is saying that he will be or have complete immunity in regards to anything that the president does in the future. So this is a man who has set up or done his damnedest, rather, to make sure that his political ideologies and his policies go through the Senate. He's made sure that he has certain judges, certain different people within positions of power to ensure that he can lead with tyranny.
The Supreme Court appointment.
Thank you. I'm going to have to wrap it up there because we've run out of time. But Alistair, thank you. Good point.